You ever walk outside with a hot cup of coffee still half asleep and find a stranger's padlock hanging off your own gate like they bought the place overnight? Because that's how my Tuesday started. Me in old work boots, steam coming off the mug, staring at a brand new commercial chain and a note in neat little cursive telling me that access through my gate was now restricted. Restricted by my neighbor Beverly Hutchcraft, apparently for the safety and appearance of the neighborhood. And just like that, before I'd even finished my first cup, one woman with a drill and a Home Depot receipt had decided she was in charge of my land. And as it turned out, the town's emergency water access too. I live in Millhaven, Ohio, about 40 minutes east of Columbus, the kind of place where the grain elevator still owns the skyline and folks can tell who's visiting the diner by the pickup parked outside. My family's been on the same piece of land since 1961 when my grandfather Ezekiel Okafor bought 12 rough acres, a ranch house, a machine shed, and a gravel lane along the eastern edge of the property. He didn't buy it on charm or trust. He bought it with stamped papers, notarized signatures, and county records because he understood something people still learn the hard way every day in America land isn't really protected by feelings, it's protected by paperwork. When my father passed in 2019, I inherited the place. I kept it because family property isn't just dirt and memories. It's proof that somebody came before you, worked for something, and left you a line to hold. That eastern gravel lane matters more than it looks. It runs from the main road across my property to Millhaven's auxiliary water reservoir, the one the fire department uses every dry summer when hydrant pressure starts dropping and everybody prays lightning behaves itself. The town has had a recorded easement over that lane since 1954. It had been renewed, filed, refiled, referenced, and baked into local life for decades. My grandfather even helped draft part of the original agreement when he served on council. At the road end sat an old pipe gate he built in 1967, galvanized steel, thick wooden posts, gravity latch plain as a work glove. Never locked, never needed to be. All my life that lane just existed, same as the wind through dead grass and the crunch of gravel under truck tires. Then Beverly moved in next door. She came from suburban Cleveland in the spring of 2022. Newly divorced, freshly loaded from a house sale full of the kind of confidence people get when they mistake money for authority. She bought the farmhouse beside my eastern fence line, the one with the bay window that looked straight down the lane, and within months she had decided she didn't like the view. Didn't like the utility trucks, didn't like the gravel noise, didn't like what she called the character of the neighborhood being affected by all that unmonitored traffic. Now, a normal person would have come over and introduced herself. Beverly wrote letters. First, she complained to county zoning, claiming the lane was an unsafe, unregistered access road. County wrote back politely and told her the easement was valid. Then she started parking her car too close to the entrance, not blocking it exactly, just making drivers hesitate. Then came code complaints about my machine shed, a building that had been standing there since 1978. Then noise complaints about truck tires on gravel. Tires on gravel. It was death by paper cuts. That's what it was. Not enough to stop anything, just enough to eat your time and your patience. What Beverly was counting on, I think, was exhaustion. That I'd get tired of proving the obvious. That I'd decide peace was cheaper than principle. She misread me. So, on September 14th, when I found that shiny padlock looped through my gate latch with her little note tucked under the chain, I didn't explode. I stood there in the damp morning air with dew still on the grass and my coffee cooling in my hand, read the note 3 times, then went back inside and made a second cup. After that, I started making calls. First call was Sergeant Walt Reedy at the Millhaven Police Department, a man who'd known my father and had spent 30 years sorting real trouble from small-town foolishness. He came out, looked at the lock, photographed everything, bagged Beverly's note, and gave me the kind of look that said he was already tired on my behalf. Technically, she trespassed to install it, he said. Possibly vandalism depending on damage. But the easement part, that's civil. You need the town involved. So I called Public Works, then the utility coordinator, then the town attorney's office. A certified letter went out to Beverly informing her the gate served a documented public utility easement and that the obstruction had to be removed within 10 business days. She did not remove it. Instead, she marched into Public Works in a cream blazer with internet printouts and lawyer talk telling anybody who'd listen that the easement was outdated, The gate was a liability hazard and she had options. A real lawyer later confirmed she had exactly 0 good ones. But by then Beverly had convinced herself she was starring in some property rights documentary where she got to be the brave little citizen fighting government overreach. The whole thing changed when I called Chief Arlene Massey at the volunteer fire department. I wasn't trying to start a war. I just wanted her to know the access point to the reservoir had been locked. But the second I said locked gate and reservoir access in the same sentence, she went quiet. Not confused quiet, calculating quiet. The kind of silence people get when they're already running disaster math in their head. She came out in her personal truck, walked the lane with me, grabbed the chain with one gloved hand and pulled hard. Then she stood there looking at that lock with this polite expression over top of pure fury. If we need tanker access during a low-pressure event, she said, my driver either cuts this chain or adds several minutes finding another route. In a house fire, several minutes is the distance between rescue and recovery. That sentence changed the air around the whole mess. By the end of the week, Beverly had a formal legal notice, municipal code violation, daily fines beginning on day 11, and warning of emergency action if she kept pushing. She hired an actual property attorney from Columbus, a man named Strickland, who reviewed the easement and told her flat out that the lock was illegal and needed to come off immediately. She ignored him too. That's when the thing took a turn from irritating to impressive, in the worst possible way. Beverly filed an adverse possession claim against the lane. Now, adverse possession is a real doctrine, but in Ohio, you need 21 years of open, continuous, hostile, exclusive use. Beverly had been next door less than 2. Her claim was a legal joke, but a joke that clouds title records, which meant she wasn't trying to win, she was trying to make me pay to clean up the mess. Cost her a couple $100 to file. Would cost me thousands to clear. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, fried chicken smell still hanging in the air, the ceiling fan ticking slightly off balance above me, and stared at the filing till my jaw hurt. Then I called Miriam Castle, a property rights attorney out of Columbus who specialized in exactly this kind of nonsense. She took one pass through the facts and said, she's not trying to take the lane. She's trying to punish you for keeping it. So we filed a quiet title action. And then because spite has a funny way of sharpening your focus, I went looking through the old records myself. That Saturday, I spent the whole afternoon at the Mill Haven Public Library in the local history room, sitting under weak yellow light with archival binders, brittle paper, and one groaning microfilm machine that sounded older than I was. I was hunting for the original 1954 easement, not the summary, not the renewal, the first full document. I found it in the third binder, 20 pages of dense legal language, fading into that warm gray color old typewriter ink gets when it survived more history than most people. I read every single page. And on page 9, buried in a subsection called Penalties and Remediation, I found the twist that changed everything. The clause said that if anyone obstructed that easement, physically, legally, or administratively, after written municipal notice, they owed the property owner a lump sum compensatory payment equal to the assessed value of 1 acre of county land. Multiplied by every calendar day, the obstruction remained unresolved. I read it 3 times. Then I texted Miriam a photo. 14 minutes later, my phone buzzed with one sentence. Call me now. We did the math together. 1 acre in Licking County, around $8,200. Days since written notice 31 at that point. Beverly's little padlock had quietly ripened into more than $250,000 in civil liability, and it kept climbing every day that chain stayed on my gate. My grandfather had helped draft that easement back in 1954, and somewhere in that old council room, long before Beverly Hutchcraft was even a thought in the world, that man had built teeth into the law because he understood something simple. When it comes to water access and fire response, polite wording isn't enough. Community protection needs consequences. That clause had sat there for nearly 70 years like a coiled spring waiting for exactly one fool reckless enough to test it. While Beverly was out passing flyers about neighborhood character and rural peace, I got to work. Quiet title action moving, civil complaint drafted, Chief Massey ready, town fines stacking up at $250 a day. Then another gift dropped into my lap. My neighbor Pet casually mentioned her video doorbell pointed right at the lane. Turns out it had caught everything. Beverly's car crowding the entrance, the fence crew she tried hiring to wall off the lane, and most importantly, the full time-stamped footage of Beverly herself installing the lock at 7:22 in the morning like some suburban warlord claiming new territory before breakfast. That was the second twist. The first was the clause. The second was proof so clean it looked staged. By then, Beverly had gone fully public. Facebook group long posts about government harassment, wild complaints to my employer, pressure on town council, even a proposal that emergency vehicles should call her for gate access and she'd personally respond within 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Like fire waits politely in the driveway for somebody's landscaping preferences. Chief Massey answered that idea with a formal letter that might as well have been written in gasoline. She laid out survival rates, response delays, fire, district liability, insurance, impacts, all of it. Her closing line got repeated all over town. A 15-minute access guarantee during an active structure fire is not a solution. It is a liability. By the time October 3rd arrived, the room at the town meeting was packed wall to wall. Harriet from the Historical Society had set up a display with the original easement and a framed photo of my grandfather. Travis from local TV had a camera in the back. Folks were standing 3 deep along the walls. Beverly came in dressed sharp and composed, folder in her lap, like maybe good posture could still save her. That morning before sunrise, Miriam had filed the civil complaint. By 7 a.m., a process server handed it to Beverly at her front door. By evening, she knew the number. At the meeting, the town attorney laid out the fines. Chief Massey spoke next, steady and deadly, and when she explained what a 4-minute fire delay really means, the whole room went still in that uncomfortable way people do when danger stops being abstract and suddenly has an address. Then Petty stood up, calm as a church usher, and handed over the USB drive with the lock footage. When Beverly got her turn, she gave a polished speech about collaboration, property rights, and disproportionate government response. She was articulate. She was practiced. And she was talking to a room that had already decided this was no longer about her preferences. It was about whether one person's ego got to put an entire town at risk. Then I stood up. I didn't use the podium. I just held one page in my hand and read the clause from page 9 slowly, clearly, every word landing like a hammer. Then I said the number out loud, $434,600. You could feel that room jolt. I looked at Beverly and told her I wasn't standing there because I wanted money. I was standing there because my grandfather and a whole lot of decent people had spent 70 years protecting that access point, and I wanted it on the public record that a woman with a padlock and too much confidence was not going to end that tradition on my watch. The room erupted. Council chair called for order twice. Beverly whispered to Strickland. He whispered back. And finally, in a voice flatter than cardboard, she agreed to remove the lock by 9 the next morning. At 9:04 a.m., I stood in the lane and watched her walk up to my gate with bolt cutters. No speech, no apology, no eye contact. Just the metallic snap of the chain, the clunk of the padlock coming free, and the creak of that old gate swinging open under its own weight, the way it had done for more than 50 years before she ever laid eyes on it. And I'll tell you something, that sound was better than shouting. Better than revenge fantasies, better than any courtroom monologue, just the simple, honest noise of something being put back where it belonged. The civil case settled a few weeks later. She paid the municipal fines, cleared the lien, paid me enough that Miriam described it as more than adequate, and the judge struck her adverse possession filing as frivolous. Beverly listed her house not long after and was gone by February. The town re-recorded the easement to modern standards, added reflective signage, and passed a new emergency ordinance so no one could ever stall fire access with a 10-day delay again. Chief Massey even got a tanker grant the next spring. And me, I had a new sign made for the gate, plain aluminum, reflective, nothing fancy. Mill Haven Utility Access Easement established 1954, unobstructed access required by law. That gate's been unlocked ever since. What stayed with me wasn't just that I won. It was how I won. Not by being louder, not by acting crazier than the crazy person. I won because I got organized, read the documents, and refused to let somebody else's arrogance rush me into a sloppy fight. Petty power only works when there's a gap between what they know and what you know. Close that gap, and half their strength disappears before the real fight even starts. So here's the question I keep coming back to when somebody abuses power in a way that could hurt other people. Is it enough to make them stop? Or do they need to feel the full cost of what they tried to do? Tell me what you think in the comments. Was Beverly treated fairly, or did karma simply cash the check she wrote herself? And if you've ever had an a neighbor or some petty local tyrant come after your property, your peace, or your rights, Tell me your story too. I want to hear it.